Welcome. I'm Dr. Phyllis, your coach, and this is the Own Your Yes podcast. And today is episode 78, The Stress of Trying to Stay Ahead. Have you ever felt like your mind is always racing ahead, trying to anticipate problems before they happen? Like you're constantly in fix it mode, preparing for every possible challenge before it even arrives. If so, you're not alone. Today, we're talking about how trying to stay ahead can actually keep you stuck in stress, exhaustion, and depletion. The stress of always trying to stay ahead looks like always thinking 10 steps ahead. Does that sound familiar? Trying to solve problems before they happen. Feeling like you don't if you don't plan ahead, something will go wrong. Do you feel like you're carrying the weight of everyone else's needs, anticipating their struggles before they even express them? Have you ever felt like you're never fully present because your mind is always racing ahead? You feel this constant, almost like low grade or smoldering anxiety because you're always in preparation mode. You're always on guard. You're always kind of standing in the ready position. You never feel like you can really relax because there's always one more thing to do. If any of this resonates with you, I know this cycle all too well because I've lived it. And as I always share with you, through my own personal journey, I had to go through some deep mindset, spiritual, physical work so that I could keep myself in check. Because as resilient women who have come to start living life on autopilot, we're in constant depletion and we're at risk to fall back into depletion if we don't keep ourselves in check. So even after I have gone through my own transformation, I'm always making sure I'm mindful of when I start getting the little signals that I'm falling back into autopilot mode that is at risk of putting me back in depletion. I quickly put myself back in check. And that's really what it's about. But yeah, working in hospice, working in the community, trying to show up and be the best wife, the best mom, the best sister, the best, I call myself junior matriarch. It is just a lot. And there's all these moving parts that I always was just trying to stay ahead of. And because I remember how it was for me coming along as a parent, struggling, I know where I've come from. And it's easy to try to stay ahead of things because if you feel like if you stay ahead of things, somehow you avoid the crisis. Yet, in the midst of trying to avoid the crisis or avoid the inability to meet someone's expectations or to avoid or prevent the inability to fix it or trying to avoid people's disappointment. And I think at working in hospice, it was always feeling like I wanted to help that patient and that family have the best experience possible based upon what they're going through. As a parent, I wanted to take my experiences growing up and maturing and the pitfalls, the mistakes that I made. I wanted to try to prevent my kids from having to go through those experiences. And then there's the narratives in my brain, and I know you have those too of, "Oh, well, what are people gonna think?" And you're trying to people please, and you're trying to, fix things because you wanna feel like you're valued, you wanna feel like you're helping, you wanna feel like what you're doing matters. All of that causes this stress because you're trying to avoid, like I was trying to avoid, crisis or trying to make life better for other people at the point that I just was giving out. And I know you too. We're just constantly giving, giving, giving. You're trying to get ahead of things. And again, our our intention is good. We think that we're going to make our burden lighter. We think that we're going to make the burden of others lighter if we get ahead of things. But actually, what we do is we cause a great deal of mental, emotional, spiritual, physical stress for ourselves. And actually, we end up not being really present for those who we're trying to serve. And then also for our families, we actually can end up showing up very controlling and again not present because we're trying to control. We're just on edge all the time because we're so busy trying to control every detail that we actually cause more drama, more trauma, more stress for ourselves and everyone around us because especially this plays out with what we deal with at work. And when work seems out of control and we're trying to be ahead of everything, then it blurs into home and we're trying to control everything and get ahead of everything because we're trying to like juggle this whole myth of balance of being ahead and juggling everything. It can play out at church, it can play out in the community. So we're just a ball of stress, disconnected stress that's not present, that's not having joy because we're trying to stay ahead of everything. It's stress. It's stress. And it plays out in, as I said earlier, our emotional state, our spiritual state, our physical state. And I know, I see you because I've been there. And living in depletion because you're just giving out, trying to stay ahead of everything. And that autopilot mindset just it just zaps you because your nervous system is constantly in this state of alertness, just hyper alert, overstimulated. And then because we can get into this control mode of trying to stay ahead, that we're very much at risk to get disconnected from God's provision and his timing. And so it is so important that we have to try our best to break free and to shift from this whole trying to stay ahead to be in control to more into presence. And I also think that there is some fear that is underneath. There's this guilt of not being ahead, right? In that stress, but there's also this fear that if we don't stay ahead, everything's going to fall apart. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself what you might be afraid of, or what you might be afraid will happen if you stop trying to stay ahead of everything? Is it a fear of failure? Is it a fear of disappointing others? Things falling apart? That can be the first step. It can be difficult, but that can be the really critical first step, sis, to just call a thing a thing. Call out the fear. I had to do it. And I think it's very hard for us as very resilient, big-hearted people, women, Christian women, to admit fear. Because yes, God has not created the spirit of fear, and that is true. So when fear takes a hold of us, we know that other spirit is trying to get in and derail us. Yet God still loves me. He still loves you. We're human. Fear is a part of the human condition, but calling it out removes its grasp on us and its power over us. And I want to let you know too, after you call out the fear, the next part to trying to release that burden. Everything is not yours to carry. It's not your responsibility for everything. You know, in Matthew 6:34, and this is from the New King James Version that I use as reference, it says, "Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." And I know, because I'm you, that it is very hard to stop worrying about tomorrow, to stop worrying about tomorrow. But I want to tell you, trust that God is already ahead of you. He's already working it. And so a big part is to let him have it. It can be scary. It's that fear, right? Of letting go and knowing and trusting that someone else, even God, has us. We don't have to control everything. And that's difficult because that's part of our DNA, right? Is to, we want to fix, we want to help, but God's got us. And God has got us, the Christian women who feel like we got to fix it. He got us. He can handle it. He can handle it. It made me think about my mom, and you're going to hear me reference her a lot because she gave me a whole lot of wisdom. And she made a point of doing that. And I appreciate her for that, because I'm at a point in time in my life where I want to pass on wisdom to other women. And that's why I do this podcast. That's why I um, have become a life coach. And that's why on the horizon, I am looking forward to writing my book to share and help and empower other resilient Christian women because, she used to tell me, let me get back to what she said. She was an educator and she was a leader over childcare centers among her multiple responsibilities. And so she had to oversee staff, not only the teachers, but she had to coordinate with the school, but she also had to deal with the parents, the kids, and she never knew who, staff might be out a day, what was going to happen. And and this is after making sure that she dropped me off when I was at an age I was, still in school, or my brother, or when she was helping putting us through school, and when she was caring for other family members and friends and everything she had to do. But she always talked about, because our family's home was on an alley, and she always said that, you know, she would start praying from the time she left out of that alley until she got to her job. And she'd drop us off and she'd get to the job, and even after we were off, away at school. But she would talk about how unmarried and all that. But she talked about the how still, but before she retired, that she said, you know what? I would meditate and pray because by the time I got to work, me and the Lord had taken care of it. And I really think about that because we can be very strong women. And it's okay to say, Lord, I need you, number one, to take over. And I need you to partner with me today. And let's do this. And so I want to tell you, sis, that God has got you. And often we need to just be with today. Yes, there's certain things that we may have to plan for, but tomorrow's going to come when tomorrow's going to come. You got to focus on what you can do today. So it's important to recognize that every burden isn't for yours to carry or to stress about. The third thing is that I wanted to share that when your mind starts racing ahead, it's important to stop and ask yourself, where am I right now? What is really true in this moment? And I want you to take some breaths and I want you to start practicing letting go of the need to just preemptively or start getting in fix mode. Because you've heard me talk about before that that often the best gift we can give people is let them live their journey. And this is important as a parent. It's difficult, but we have to let our kids. And I'm one of the first ones, I've admitted to you. I used to, try to, you know, protect my kids against every experience. And then we wonder how, when they get older, why they're not equipped to handle some situations. We have to let them experience. We're there to coach them, to advise them, to support them. But how are they going to learn if we don't let them experience? And that's the same thing with potential staffs we oversee as leaders, or I had to realize that caring for a family member, or when I working was working with hospice patients and their families, is that our heart, my heart would go out to them so much that and I could so clearly see there could be family dynamics going on, but that was their dynamics. And God had a journey they had to go through. And sometimes it meant I'd have to, experience the brunt of their frustration. Yet I had to set some boundaries and say internally in my mind that, okay, those are things they got to work on. So we have to pause And we have to really say, where am I right now? Where am I right now? What do I need to do? And what do I need to let someone else do? And the fourth thing is, I guess it actually ties in that to even the third that I shared with you, is that not everything needs a solution right now. And you'll hear me over and over talk about the word permission, is that s- sometimes, often actually, more than sometimes, the best gift, the best solution is two prong. A, do nothing right now. B, go sit down and take a break or take a nap. And I found that I can think so much clearer when I stop and refuel and then pick it up again later. Because when you're working from depletion, it just gets crazy. So I really pray that this episode was helpful to you. It's just been on my heart, um, as I think about you and what you're going through right now. I want you to really think about and take your own self inventory of, are you stressed out because you're trying to stay ahead? And what I want you to do this week is, if you start noticing yourself mentally just starting to jump ahead, I want you to pause and ask yourself, do I really need to solve this now? Or can I trust the moment I'm in? Can I just sit with my feelings? Am I fearing something? Am I feeling guilt? Is it really warranted how I feel? Or is my mind, are those narratives, is Satan getting busy trying to keep me distracted and caught up in thoughts? And I bet you more times than not, you just need to let it go. You need to be in the moment and acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it and say, the I really believe that more times than not, the sun is not going to stop shining, the earth is not going to stop revolving or crash if you don't handle that right now. And it's not for you to handle. God will take care of it. He's going to give you the discernment. And I think that's really the biggest thing, sis, is when you find your mind starting to race and get ahead of yourself and start going in fix mode, is stop. Stop and pause and say, okay, Lord, what is it that I need to do? Do I need to just close my mouth and not say anything? Do I need to just let things flow? Or do I need to just stop and refuel and be present in this moment and let you do what you need to do, Lord? So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I look forward to this time with you every week. And if you have not had a chance, I would greatly appreciate if you're over on YouTube looking at me right now, please like and subscribe. If you are listening to me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or other Audible platforms, because I'm on multiple, I would please ask that you would even take time to rate the podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. Give me a review, like and subscribe and share. I'm giving you all of these ways that, and I would greatly appreciate it, because I want to grow this movement. I want us to get out in front of as many Christian women as possible, because I feel that we need a forum, we need a community where we can hold each other up. I love you. I look forward to seeing you next week on Own Your Yes. Take care now. Bye-bye.